The first light of dawn stretched across the horizon of the empty starfield. The small exploration vessel, Horizon's Edge, drifted slowly toward a hulking silhouette in the void. It was enormous, a ship that must have been built for a colony or a long journey. Yet it floated lifelessly. Its metal skin scarred by impacts from debris or something worse. No lights shone from its windows. No signal broadcasted from its communication arrays. It was a dead ship, or so it seemed. Captain Elias Vorn tightened his grip on the railing of the observation deck. His crew moved silently around him, their faces pale in the soft glow of the instrument panels. There was a weight in the air, an unspoken understanding that they were about to step into a place where the rules of safety and certainty no longer applied. Elias had led many missions before, but the emptiness of this drifting vessel carried a different kind of danger. A quiet that pressed against the mind itself. "Stay sharp," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We don't know what we'll find inside. No assumptions. No risks we don't have to take." The crew nodded. Lieutenant Rami adjusted his helmet, glancing at the hull through the viewport. "It's bigger than I imagined," he said, voice low. "It looks like it could house hundreds of people. Yet there's no sign of life." "Exactly," Elias replied. "And that is why we go in. If it's empty, we recover what we can. If it's not, we make sure we survive." Engineer Mira Chen checked the readings on her tablet, frowning at the erratic signals. The life support systems are offline. Some power remains in the lower circuits, but it's unstable. Whoever, or whatever is in there, won't be relying on any standard systems. Elias exhaled slowly. "Good. That means we need to be ready for surprises. Gear up." We board in 15. The airlock opened with a hiss, sending a cold draft into the ship's interior. The humans entered in single file, boots clanging softly against metal floors that had not been walked upon in years. The lights above flickered weakly, revealing walls scarred by burns, scratches, and dents. The smell of burnt circuits and decayed synthetic material was heavy in the air. Clinging to their suits, for the first few minutes, nothing stirred. The team moved cautiously, sweeping their lights across corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and every creak of metal made hearts race. Elias led the way, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, every flicker of light. "Any readings?" he asked Mira. "Minimal," she said. "Some faint heat signatures, but nothing like a full crew. It's almost like the ship itself is alive, in a different way." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Humans had encountered strange phenomena before, but this was different. The whispers started then, soft, distant, almost too faint to notice at first. They seemed to echo from the walls, bouncing from one corridor to another, indistinct and fleeting. Elias stopped and held up a hand. "Do you hear that?" Mira nodded slowly. "I hear it. It's like someone is speaking behind walls, but there's no one there." Lieutenant Rami frowned. "Maybe it's just the ship settling. Old ships creak. You've heard it before, but the sound was more than a creak. It had rhythm, a tone almost like words, and as they moved deeper, it seemed to respond to them. When someone whispered, the echoes would shift, almost as if they were answering." The crew exchanged nervous glances, each step feeling heavier than the last. They reached what appeared to be the central atrium, a massive open space that had once been a hub for passengers or crew. Broken panels and scattered debris littered the floor. Sunlight filtering through a cracked viewport gave the metal a dull, gray gleam. The whispers seemed to come from below, echoing up through the hollow shafts of the ship. "Check for entry points to the lower decks," Elias ordered. "We need to know what's down there before we go further." Mira moved quickly, examining a hatch that led to a stairwell descending into darkness. "The stairwell is intact, but it's unstable. Some sections might collapse if we're not careful." "Then we go slowly," Elias said. "Stay together. No one runs ahead. As they began their descent, the whispers grew louder. They were no longer just indistinct murmurs. They had rhythm and a strange melody, almost like a chant. Lieutenant Rami stiffened. "It's talking to us," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what it's saying, but it feels aware." Mira shivered. "It's not human. I've never seen anything like it. But it's intelligent. The ship, something inside is trying to communicate." Elias considered this. Humans had always faced the unknown and survived. In their history, when all seemed hopeless, human ingenuity and courage had carried them through. This was no different. Fear was natural, but hesitation could cost them their lives. The stairwell opened into a vast corridor stretching far beyond the range of their lights. Panels along the walls flickered sporadically, revealing strange symbols etched into the metal. Some were geometric, others like flowing scripts, unlike any human language. When a crew member stepped close, the pattern seemed to shimmer faintly, almost reacting to their presence. "Look at this," Mira said, pointing. "The symbols. They're not just decoration. They respond to us. Maybe it's how it tries to communicate." As they moved further, one of the crew, a young technician named Yara, froze in place. "Did you see that?" she whispered. "What?" Elias asked. "A shadow. It moved across the wall, but there was nothing there. Just a flicker." The crew tightened their formation. Shadows flickered and danced along the walls, always just out of reach. The whispers became more insistent, rising and falling like wind through a canyon. Every step forward felt like moving deeper into a living maze, the ship itself breathing around them. Elias led them to what he assumed was the bridge. The room was massive, with consoles broken or dead, and the captain's chair overturned. The logs on the main console were partially corrupted, showing only fragments of the ship's last days. Alarms, panic messages. Then, silence. Mira scrolled through the corrupted logs, frowning. "It looks like the ship experienced some catastrophic failure. Systems went offline suddenly. But there's more. These readings here don't match anything I've seen. Energy surges that shouldn't exist in a ship this size. Almost like something alive was feeding off the systems." The whispers surged suddenly, almost like a gust of wind in the room, making the crew flinch. Elias steadied himself. "Whatever's down there, it's not trying to hurt us. Not yet. But it's aware of us. And it's curious. That gives us an advantage if we stay calm and careful." The crew took a brief moment to rest, though the tension made sleep impossible. No one spoke much. Words felt inadequate. Even in silence, the whispers persisted. A reminder that they were not alone. Elias made a decision. "We descend tomorrow. We need to know the ship fully before going further. For now, we gather what we can and secure this level. We stay alert. We do not underestimate what we're dealing with." Mira nodded, still studying the symbols. "I've never felt something like this. It's like the ship remembers. Like it has a mind of its own. Shaped by the lives that once lived here." Rami shivered. "And we're the first humans to step inside for decades. Maybe centuries. Maybe it wants to know us, or test us, or maybe it wants to warn us." Elias looked at the silent ship around them. The metal walls, the shadowed corridors, the faint hum of residual power. It was all part of something larger. Something the humans did not yet understand. But he knew one thing clearly. Fear would not save them. Humanity had always survived the impossible, not because it was strongest, but because it was clever, resilient, and unafraid to confront the unknown. The crew settled in for a restless sleep in the atrium, their lights casting long shadows across the walls. Outside, the dawn grew stronger. The first rays of the star shining across the drifting ship, and somewhere deep within the hull, the whispers continued. A quiet chorus that seemed almost alive. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in the cold, recycled air. He thought of the generations of humans who had faced the dark, who had stared into emptiness and found a way forward. They would need that courage tomorrow. When they descended into the lower decks and confronted whatever lingered in the heart of the dead ship, and even though the whispers had not yet revealed their full meaning, Elias felt a strange certainty. Humans had faced the unknown before. They would do it again, and in that challenge, they would grow stronger not just as explorers, but as the first species to truly understand that even in the silence of a dead ship, life, courage, and hope could persist. The crew awoke to the soft hum of the drifting ship, though the dawn outside had fully broken. Its light barely penetrated the deep corridors of the derelict vessel. Captain Elias Vorn gathered his team in the atrium. Their expressions were tense, their sleep uneasy. Every one of them had heard the whispers again in the night, rising faintly through the hull like voices of the long dead. "Today we go lower," Elias said, his voice firm. "We need to know what's down there. No hesitation, no shortcuts. Stay together, stay alert." Lieutenant Rami adjusted his suit and scanned the corridor ahead. "I don't like it," he muttered. "Whatever's down there, it's aware. I can feel it. It's almost like it knows what we're thinking." Elias nodded. "That may be true. But humans survive because we adapt, not because we're unafraid. We proceed cautiously and rely on our minds as well as our skills. That is how we survive." Engineer Mira Chen checked her instruments again. Life support systems are still dead in the lower decks. The residual power is weak, but it should be enough for lighting and communication. The structural integrity looks okay, but some areas may collapse if we aren't careful. The first steps down the stairwell were slow and deliberate. Each crew member's footfall echoed hollowly, bouncing off the metal walls. The whispers began almost immediately, soft and distant, then growing more distinct. It was as though the ship itself was greeting them or warning them. Mira held up a hand. "Listen. It's different down here. The sounds aren't random. They respond to us. When we move, they shift. When we speak, they answer. It's intelligent." Rami swallowed hard. "Intelligent or dangerous?" Elias shook his head. "We won't know until we see for ourselves. But we face what comes with courage and teamwork. That is what humans do." They reached a corridor lined with panels etched with symbols that shimmered faintly in their lights. Geometric shapes intertwined with flowing scripts, unlike any language known to them. When Mira moved close, the symbols seemed to react. Pulses of faint light spreading across the metal. "These are communication patterns," Mira said. "Or warnings. Maybe both. The ship or whatever is inside wants us to notice them." A low hum began beneath their feet. The sound grew, blending with the whispers. Shadows flickered across the walls, sometimes forming shapes that almost resembled figures. The crew's nerves tightened, but Elias pressed on, reminding them to focus. As they rounded a corner, they came across a room that had once been a living area for the crew of the ship. Personal belongings were scattered across the floor, empty containers, torn clothing, broken devices. The smell of decay lingered faintly, though the vacuum of space had long since drained most of it away. Jara shivered. "It's like they just disappeared," she whispered. Mira examined a console nearby. "These logs show panic messages, but then they abruptly end. Whoever was here vanished. The ship didn't fail naturally. Something forced it, or trapped them." The whispers grew louder, rising into a melody of syllables that seemed almost familiar. When Rami spoke, the echoes repeated fragments of his words, but rearranged, as though trying to form their own sentences. "Did anyone else hear that?" he asked, voice tense. "Yes," Elias replied. "It's reacting to us. That means we can communicate, if we try carefully. But we must remain calm. Panic will make it hostile." Mira touched the symbols etched into the wall. "Maybe these are the key. They react to thought patterns, or emotions. It's trying to connect with us, but in its own way." The team moved deeper into the lower decks. The air grew colder, the corridors narrower. Occasionally, They passed doors that had been warped by heat or pressure, metal twisted in ways that suggested extreme force. The ship's structure moaned under the stress, as if groaning at their intrusion. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared at the end of a corridor. The crew froze. It wasn't a light from any system. It seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, pulsing softly, almost like breathing. The whispers converged around it, forming words that the crew could almost understand. Elias raised a hand. "Stay calm. Observe first." They approached slowly. Mira's instruments were going wild. "The readings don't match any energy source I know. It's alive, somehow. But it's not physical. It's in the ship's systems, its structure, maybe even the metal itself." The whispers swirled into a coherent voice, faint but distinct. "Humans. Welcome. Helpers. Awake." Rami stepped back. "It's speaking to us." "How is that possible?" Elias's face was serious. "We're human. We adapt. It recognizes our presence, our intelligence, and is trying to reach us. That's why we're here. It wants to communicate. We can't ignore it." The crew split slightly, careful not to crowd the phenomenon. As they moved closer, the glow spread along the walls, and shapes emerged in the light figures that resembled humans, but blurred and flickering. It was as if the ship's memory was projecting them. Mira gasped. "These are echoes of the crew that once lived here. Their presence is preserved somehow. The entity, whatever this is, holds them in memory." Elias stepped forward. "We need to understand. Approach slowly. Make contact." The whispers surged, forming words in the mind rather than the ears. "Fear not. We are trapped. Help us. Awaken. Understand." Rami's hands shook slightly. "It's like it knows what I'm thinking. It wants us to see them, to help them." "But how?" Mira looked at the symbols again. "They are a bridge. If we respond properly, maybe we can stabilize the energy, communicate fully, even free them. It's incredible. Humans have a chance to do what no other species has." Elias took a deep breath. "Then we proceed. Carefully. One step at a time." They moved as one toward the source of the glow. As they neared, the figures became clearer ghostly images of humans. Alive once, now bound to the ship's memory. Each figure seemed to express emotion: fear, hope, confusion, longing. The crew realized that they weren't just facing an alien intelligence, they were facing the preserved consciousness of a civilization that had perished here. One figure stepped forward in the glow, raising a hand. It was indistinct but human enough that the crew instinctively reached back. The whispers now formed a single coherent thought. "Humans. We need your help. We cannot leave. The ship is dying." Elias spoke aloud. "We hear you. We will do what we can. Stay calm. Work together." Mira began scanning the energy patterns. The ship's core is unstable. The entity has been feeding off the residual power, but it cannot maintain itself. If we stabilize it, we can preserve their consciousness and prevent the collapse. But it's dangerous. Rami swallowed hard. "Everything about this is dangerous, but we can't leave them like this." In a way, the team spread out, examining consoles, energy conduits, and structural nodes. Mira's hands moved deftly, reconnecting circuits, stabilizing failing nodes, carefully balancing energy flows. The whispers guided her, forming suggestions that she could barely comprehend, yet they made sense when applied. Hours passed. The crew worked tirelessly, the ship trembling occasionally as the entity resisted or adapted. Shadows flickered along the walls, echoing the past lives of the ship's inhabitants. Every time someone faltered, Elias reminded them, "Fear is natural, but hesitation can be fatal." Finally, a surge of light swept through the corridors. The whispers transformed into calm tones, almost like a sigh of relief. The glow softened, no longer flickering erratically. The ghostly figures stabilized, expressions now peaceful. Mira let out a long breath. We did it. The entity is stable. It can sustain itself now. And the crew's memories are preserved safely. We actually did it. Elias nodded, eyes scanning the silent corridors. We survived. Not just because we are strong, but because we were brave, careful, and willing to understand. That is humanity. That is why we endure. Rami looked around at the ghostly figures. They're still here, but calm. I think they understand us now. We're part of their story. Somehow, the whispers faded into gentle hums, comforting rather than eerie. The crew took a moment to rest, the tension easing slightly. They had faced the unknown, communicated with an alien intelligence, and preserved a lost civilization's memory. Elias addressed them quietly. We have done something remarkable today. This ship, these echoes, they are a reminder of what humans can do. We confront the unknown not with fear alone, but with courage, intelligence, and compassion. That is why we survive. That is why we endure. As they prepared to return to the upper decks, the glow dimmed but remained visible in the distance. A quiet sentinel watching over the preserved memories. The whispers were no longer threatening, they were words of thanks, almost human in their tone, acknowledging the crew's courage and empathy. The humans climbed back to the atrium, exhausted but triumphant. The dead ship no longer seemed lifeless. It was alive in a new way, shaped by the actions of humans who refused to give in to fear. And somewhere deep in the hull, the entity remained, a guardian of memories, sustained by the bravery and intelligence of the species that had always reached for the stars, no matter the danger. Elias stood by the viewport, gazing at the drifting ship. The sun's rays reflected off its hull, revealing the scars and the beauty of its worn metal. Humans had entered its depths, faced the unknown, and prevailed, not through violence or domination, but through understanding, courage, and the willingness to act where others might hesitate. The whispers had become a song of quiet hope, a reminder that life, human life, intelligence, courage, was enough to survive even in the cold emptiness of space. And in that moment, the crew understood a truth that had carried humanity for centuries. In the face of the unknown, humans would endure, they would adapt, and they would always find a way to triumph. The crew of the Horizon's Edge had barely recovered from their descent into the lower decks before Captain Elias Vorn called them together. The glow from the entity deep within the ship pulsed faintly, a reminder that the presence they were dealing with was not just alive, but aware, intelligent, and powerful. We've stabilized it for now, Elias said, voice steady despite the tension. But this is only the beginning. The entity that resides here, it's not just a remnant of the ship. It's aware, capable, and it may test us. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. Lieutenant Rami swallowed hard. You mean, it can try to control us? Or manipulate us? Yes, Elias replied, but it's not inherently hostile. We've shown it that humans are capable of understanding. That gives us a chance. And humans, we always take chances when survival demands it. Engineer Mira Chen checked her instruments again. The ship's core is unstable. If we want to communicate fully with the entity, or even learn its origin, we'll need to approach the bridge or the main power conduit. But it's risky. Any sudden surge could harm the entity or us. Elias nodded. Then we proceed carefully. We rely on what makes us human. Courage, intelligence, and unity. We can do this together. They moved toward the central core of the ship, descending another stairwell that groaned under their weight. The whispers followed them, now forming faint patterns that Rami could almost recognize as words. Sometimes they echoed his thoughts back to him, distorted but unmistakable. It was unsettling, but also fascinating. Mira paused at one junction, studying a panel that flickered with residual energy. This is it. The main conduit runs just beyond this point. The entity seems to focus its attention here. It's guiding us, I think. The corridor ahead narrowed, walls glowing faintly with the energy that the entity emitted. Shadows flickered and danced, creating shapes that resembled the lost crew members of the ship. Elias gestured for silence. Observe first. Move slowly. Watch for patterns. As they advanced, the whispers intensified. They were no longer random or melodic, they had intention. The entity was testing them, probing their reactions, gauging courage and empathy. Rami felt a tug in his mind, images flashing. Fear, loss, isolation. He resisted, focusing on the words of Elias. Humans had survived fear many times before, and this was no different. Mira approached the glowing panel. The symbols, if we align them properly with the conduit, we might be able to stabilize the core. It's intricate, but if we succeed, we'll gain a direct connection with the entity. It could share knowledge beyond anything we've imagined. Elias nodded. Do it, carefully. Hours passed as Mira worked, adjusting conduits, reconnecting power nodes, and interpreting the glowing symbols. Every now and then, the shadows flickered more violently, and the whispers escalated into faint cries of warning. The entity was testing their patience and skill, trying to determine if they were worthy of the knowledge it held. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor dimmed, leaving only the glow of the conduit and the shifting shadows. The whispers surged, forming almost coherent words. Do not fail, or all is lost. The ship remembers. Rami shivered. It's desperate. If we make one mistake, it could collapse everything. Elias placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Then we don't make mistakes. We work together. We're human. That has always been enough. Mira adjusted a series of energy regulators, her fingers moving swiftly but carefully. Almost there. Just one more connection. As she completed the final adjustment, the conduit pulsed with a bright, steady light. The shadows in the corridor froze, then slowly coalesced into clearer figures. The lost crew members were now more than faint images, they were projections of memory, their faces showing expressions of relief, hope, and gratitude. The whispers shifted from warnings to conversation, soft but distinct. Humans, you understand. You endure. You survive. Elias exhaled slowly. It recognizes us now. It trusts us. The entity's presence became tangible, a weightless force that filled the corridor, flowing through the crew without touching them physically. Rami felt his mind expand with thoughts and emotions, not his own memories of the lost crew, the pain of isolation, the struggle to survive without hope. He fought to remain focused, grounding himself in the knowledge that humans had faced impossible odds countless times and prevailed. Mira's hands flew across the panel, now interpreting the final sequences of symbols. We can communicate fully. The entity is letting us into its consciousness. I can feel its memories, its experiences. It's incredible. Beyond anything I imagined. The corridor around them shimmered as the entity projected visions, alien worlds, lost civilizations, and the moments when the ship's crew had tried to save themselves. Each image carried emotion, fear, hope, courage, and the humans absorbed it without losing their own sense of self. Elias realized the significance. Humans were not just witnessing the past, they were participating in it, bridging the gap between life and memory. The entity had never experienced empathy from another intelligent species, and now it was learning from humans. Careful, Mira, Elias warned. Do not overwhelm it. Pace yourself. Mira nodded, adjusting the energy flows slowly, feeling the rhythm of the entity's consciousness. I understand. We can help it stabilize. It will share knowledge, yes, but only if we show patience and understanding. The glow of the conduit expanded, bathing the corridor in warm light. The shadows no longer flickered violently, they moved with purpose, guiding the humans closer to the ship's core. Elias led his team with steady steps, each member aware of the delicate balance between success and disaster. Suddenly, the entity projected a vision directly into their minds, a warning. The ship itself was deteriorating, its structure weakening with each passing hour. If they failed to stabilize the core completely, the entire lower deck could collapse, erasing the memories and the consciousness it preserved. Rami's heart pounded. We have to finish this. Now. Yes, Elias agreed. Humans endure because we act when it counts. We adapt. We persist. And we never give up. That is why we are here. Mira focused, her hands moving faster but with precision. Sparks flew from a nearby panel, but she ignored them, maintaining control over the conduit's energy. The whispers surged, forming words of encouragement. Strong, brave, worthy, human, help. The final connection was made. The conduit pulsed brightly, then stabilized. The entity's presence enveloped them, calm and steady. The shadows of the lost crew became serene. As if finally at peace, Mira lowered her hands, breathing heavily. It's done. The core is stable. The entity, it's communicating fully. We can understand it now. Elias stepped forward, speaking aloud. We hear you. We understand. We are humans. And we endure. Your knowledge, your memories, they are safe with us. The entity's voice resonated in their minds, clear and deliberate. Humans, you are remarkable. You endure because you have courage, empathy, and wisdom. You are worthy of the knowledge we preserve. You may learn, you may grow, but you must never forget. Survival is not enough. Understanding is essential. Rami felt tears in his eyes. It's thanking us. It trusts us. Mira nodded, her expression awed. And it's sharing everything it knows. Look at the data streams it's giving us: coordinates, histories, designs, knowledge we could never have imagined. Elias allowed himself a small smile. This is why humans endure. We confront the unknown, not with fear, but with understanding. We adapt. We survive. And in doing so, we gain wisdom that no other species could claim. The glow of the core dimmed slightly, settling into a steady light. The shadows of the lost crew smiled faintly, their forms now serene, no longer flickering with fear or unrest. The entity had achieved stability, and the humans had proven themselves worthy. Rami glanced around at his team. We did it. We really did it. We faced something completely alien, and we succeeded. Together, Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. Yes, that is what humans do. We face the impossible, and we endure. We adapt. We grow. That is why we survive, and why we will continue to explore, to learn, and to thrive. Mira stepped closer to the core. The knowledge, it's beyond anything we expected. Alien technology, histories of civilizations long gone. The entity wants us to take it with us, to use it responsibly. Humans have a chance to advance, to learn from what came before. Elias nodded solemnly. And we will. Carefully, thoughtfully. Humanity has always reached for the stars, and now, we have allies in understanding we never imagined. The whispers softened, becoming gentle, almost musical tones, echoing through the corridor. The entity, once a presence of confusion and desperation, was now calm, serene, and ready to guide the humans. The glow from the core illuminated the team, highlighting their tired but determined faces. Elias looked at the vessel around them. The ship was no longer just a drifting corpse in space. It was alive with history, memory, and knowledge. And the humans, brave and clever as always, had become part of that legacy. Let's prepare to move back up, Elias said. We've done what no one else could. But we must leave soon. The ship is still fragile. We carry with us knowledge, courage, and proof that humans endure where others fail. As they retraced their steps through the lower decks, the whispers now followed them like a gentle guide. No longer threatening, no longer chaotic, they offered understanding, encouragement, and a quiet acknowledgement of human bravery. For the first time, the crew truly understood the entity's message. Humans endure not just because they survive, but because they act with courage, intelligence, and compassion. That was the essence of humanity, the ability to face the unknown and emerge not just alive, but wiser, stronger, and more capable than before. By the time they reached the atrium, the glow of the core had stabilized completely. The whispers had become a calm resonance, a quiet song of gratitude and recognition. The ship, once dead and foreboding, now seemed alive with purpose and history. Humans had proven themselves, and in doing so, had become a part of something far greater than themselves. Elias gazed out at the endless star field. We have learned something remarkable here. This ship, these echoes, this entity, they are a reminder of why humans endure. We face the unknown with courage. We survive with intelligence. We grow with understanding. That is why we endure, and why we will continue to explore, to reach, and to thrive. And deep within the hull, the entity pulsed gently, whispering one last message. Humans, worthy. Keep learning. Keep enduring. Always. The crew, tired but triumphant, knew that this was not the end of their journey. It was only the beginning of a new understanding, a bond between human courage and alien knowledge that would shape their future among the stars. The crew of the Horizon's Edge took a moment to catch their breath. The entity within the ship, once chaotic and mysterious, had become calm, stable, and communicative. The ghostly echoes of the lost crew moved gracefully along the walls, their presence now serene rather than haunting. Outside, the drifting vessel floated silently in the void, no longer just a corpse of metal, but a monument to courage, resilience, and understanding. Captain Elias Vorn looked at his team. We've done what few could even imagine, he said. We've faced the unknown, made contact with an intelligence unlike anything in human history, and survived. That's not luck. That's humanity. Lieutenant Rami ran a hand over the railing of the stairwell. It feels different now. The whispers, the shadows, they're no longer frightening. Almost like they're thanking us. Mira nodded, still scanning the panels that glowed softly with residual energy. They are. The entity has stabilized, and the ship's core is now self-sustaining. It's as if it's acknowledging our presence, recognizing us as worthy. This is more than survival, it's understanding, communication, even partnership. Elias nodded. Exactly. Humans endure not only because we survive, but because we understand. That's what sets us apart. That's why we are here. The crew began their careful ascent to the upper decks, retracing the path they had taken earlier. The corridors felt different now. Lighter somehow. The once threatening whispers now hummed like a gentle guide, echoing softly with words of reassurance. Brave. Worthy. Strong. Humans. As they climbed, the crew saw the figures of the lost crew more clearly. They were faint projections, but their expressions were peaceful, even joyful. It was as though the entity, through them, was sharing gratitude and hope. The humans felt the weight of that connection, the lives they had never known, preserved by their courage and care. Rami stopped to study one of the glowing projections. I never thought I'd see anything like this. They look so real. And yet, they're not here. Not in the way we understand being here. Mira glanced at him. They're preserved. The entity holds their consciousness in a way we can observe and interact with. And now, thanks to us, they're stable, safe. We didn't just survive, we helped something extraordinary endure. Elias placed a hand on the rail, gazing down the corridor. That is humanity. We endure not because we are the strongest, but because we act. We think. We understand. We adapt. That is why we survive, and why we thrive where others fail. They finally reached the atrium, the large open space that had greeted them on their first day aboard the ship. Sunlight now reflected faintly through the cracked viewport, illuminating the metal walls and the calm figures that moved within the glow. The crew paused for a moment, taking in the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Mira's instruments chimed softly. The entity is sharing knowledge, now coordinates, histories, technologies. This is beyond what any human has ever encountered. It's giving us tools to explore, to learn, to grow. We can take this back, and humanity can benefit, safely and responsibly. Rami's eyes widened. You mean, we can understand alien technology? Learn from civilizations that no longer exist? Yes, Mira said, smiling faintly. If we apply ourselves, if we remain careful and thoughtful, the entity has offered this to us because it trusts humans. That is remarkable. Allende PM. The slaps of no tweeted dies minens klamsteen, Elias addressed the team. This is more than discovery. It's a test. And we passed. We've shown that humanity is capable of courage, intelligence, and empathy. That is what allows us to reach beyond the stars. That is what allows us to survive where others fail. The crew prepared to leave the dead ship. They gathered their instruments, secured their gear, and carefully opened the airlock. The hiss of the vent echoed through the corridors as they stepped back onto their vessel, leaving the drifting ship behind, but not empty. The entity remained, its presence steady and calm. The ship was alive in a way the humans could not fully understand, yet they felt a connection, a bond formed by courage, respect, and understanding. The whispers had become soft, almost musical, a song of gratitude and peace. As the horizon's edge moved away, Elias gazed at the drifting ship. It will remain here. But it's no longer lost. Its consciousness is preserved. Its knowledge is safe. And humanity has made a mark here, one that will endure. Rami exhaled, shaking his head in disbelief. I never imagined we'd witness something like this. It's beautiful, in a way. And humbling, Mira smiled. Yes, and think about what we can do with the knowledge we've gained. This will help humanity explore further, understand more, survive more. But more importantly, we've shown that humans can confront the unknown with courage and compassion. That is the real achievement. Elias turned to his team. We've learned something that goes beyond technology or knowledge. We've learned that humanity can endure, even when faced with the impossible. We can confront what others fear and emerge stronger. That is the essence of being human. The crew settled into their vessel, preparing for the journey back to human-controlled space. But even as they left the dead ship behind, the memory of the whispers, the glowing shadows, and the preserved consciousness of the lost crew stayed with them. They knew they had been part of something extraordinary, something that would inspire future generations of explorers. Outside, the drifting ship floated silently in the void. The light from its core pulsed gently, a heartbeat in the emptiness of space. The entity's whispers echoed faintly, a reminder of the courage and intelligence of humans. They were a species that could survive, adapt, and thrive even in the cold, silent darkness of the stars. As the horizon's edge moved further away, the crew reflected on their journey. They had entered a ship that seemed dead, faced an unknown intelligence, and emerged not only unscathed, but enlightened. They carried knowledge, hope, and a renewed belief in human potential. Elias spoke quietly to himself, staring at the stars. We endure. That is what defines us. That is what sets us apart. And that is why humanity will always reach for the stars. The crew sat in silence, feeling the weight and wonder of their experience. Every whisper, every shadow, every moment of fear and courage had brought them here. Humans had faced the unknown, and they had triumphed not through force, but through understanding, empathy, and determination. As night fell across the vast starfield, the horizon's edge sailed steadily toward home, carrying with it knowledge that would change humanity's understanding of the universe. The whispers of the dead ship faded into the distance, leaving a quiet legacy. Humans endure. Not because the universe is kind, but because humans are brave, intelligent, and compassionate enough to face the unknown and shape it for the better. Elias looked at his crew, their faces lit by the soft glow of the console lights. "Remember this," he said. "What we've seen here, what we've accomplished. It proves that humanity's greatest strength is not just survival. It's courage. It's empathy. It's the drive to understand, to reach, to endure, and that is why we will always prevail." Rami smiled faintly. I understand now. Humans don't just survive. We thrive in the face of the unknown. That's what makes us human." Mira nodded, eyes still reflecting the glow of the memories they had preserved. "Yes, and we've proven it today, not just to ourselves, but to something far greater than us. We've earned its trust, and it has given us a gift beyond measure: knowledge, understanding, and hope." The ship glided silently through the void. Stars stretched endlessly across the horizon. The endless frontier waiting to be explored. Humanity had faced the unknown, had interacted with something beyond comprehension, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united. Somewhere, deep within the drifting ship, the entity pulsed with quiet acknowledgement. Its whispers had become a gentle melody, a song of gratitude and respect for the humans who had faced fear, embraced understanding, and shown what it truly meant to endure. And as the horizon's edge continued its journey, the crew carried with them not just alien knowledge, but a profound understanding of themselves. Humans endured not because the universe allowed it, but because they chose to. They endured because they could adapt, understand, and act with courage. They endured because that is the essence of being human. The dead ship remained behind, no longer lifeless, a beacon of memory and trust. The universe was vast, filled with unknowns and challenges beyond imagination. But humanity had proven that it could face them. They would continue to explore, to learn, to grow. They would endure. And somewhere in the depths of space, the whispers lingered, soft and eternal. Humans. Worthy. Courageous. Enduring. Always. The horizon's edge sailed on, carrying humanity's triumph into the infinite night, a testament to what it meant to confront the unknown and to prevail.